Wedding venue with accommodation on site or without? What are the differences? Hello everyone, I'm Svetlana from Best Indian Weddings Italy, the first and only wedding planning agency in Italy specialized in Indian weddings. Every day I help Indian brides and grooms-to-be realize their authentic Indian celebrations in the most beautiful country in the world. I'm running this series of videos called SOS Indian Weddings in Italy with useful tips and advice that you won't find anywhere else. So if you are looking to host your Indian destination wedding in Italy, then please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell to always keep updated with the new videos every week. The topic of today is wedding venue with accommodation on site or without. What are the differences? The accommodation aspect is always important for destination weddings in general, and for Indian destination weddings it's often crucial. You would likely have 100-200 guests attending your wedding and 3, 4, 5 events over several days, and it's important to make the right decision for you. Today I clear your mind about the differences between Italian wedding venues with accommodation on site and without, so that you can make an informed choice. And don't forget that before exploring this topic, you should have already decided on the number of your guests, on your budget, and if you would like to cover accommodation of some of your guests or not. Once you've laid the foundations and any other part of the planning can't be done without, I suggest writing the list of priorities for your ideal wedding venue. And whether you want a venue with or without accommodation, it's the very first one to decide on. And when I speak about accommodation, I don't mean just a few rooms on site such as 5 to 8, but about the accommodation for all or almost all of your guests. Some couples may even think it's the same, either would work. It's not the same. So let's see together the differences. If you go with a venue which can accommodate all of your guests on site, then you would spend all the time together with them. And if you plan for a 2 or 3 days event, you will have your breakfast all together, you will relax in a swimming pool all together, and you will potentially have always people coming to your room to have a small talk, to have a drink, or to ask you something about the upcoming event. So you have to decide for yourself if you want your guest chasing you all day around or not. For many couples, having the possibility to spend all the time together with their guests is the main reason of a destination wedding. If they would get married back home, they wouldn't have this possibility. However, I've also met couples who wanted a small separate accommodation just for them and the closest family, to relax psychologically and to have a peace of mind before the wedding day. So it's up to you, just think about it and put it in the list of your priorities. This decision is crucial for the type of the wedding venue, because venues with large accommodation on site are mostly hotels, where you have to consider certain things that I'm going to speak about right now. If instead you are okay with the venues without accommodation on site, maybe because your wedding is in a famous Italian city where it's easy to find accommodation, then you must consider other things that I'm going to speak after. Let's go! As I said, venues with large accommodation capacity are mostly hotels or resorts. And it could be the case then there would be more room than needed for your party. Of course, it would be ideal to find a venue with exactly the number of rooms you request. But if there are 20, 30, 50 rooms more than needed, what are your options? One of the options is that the venue would propose you a buyout of the hotel. That means that you pay a flat rate per night, which includes all the rooms, all the spaces, and also the exclusivity of the venue with no other events held there during your stay and no other people going to the restaurant or to their on-site spa. Because oftentimes such restaurants or spa are also open to external people, not only to people staying at the resort. With the buyout, there would be only your party there. As you can imagine, this option is the most expensive. The second option is what we call here in Italy vuoto per pieno. The literal translation would be empty to full. The meaning is that you pay the same price for all the rooms, and if some rooms remain unoccupied, you cover them in any case. This option could be convenient when there isn't a big difference between the rooms you need and the rooms the venue has. Sometimes it could make sense to cover even 10 or 15 rooms more than needed because you could accommodate your suppliers there, or some of your guests could decide to join last minute. And especially having all the rooms at the same price is always more convenient than splitting them by categories. But you must know that this option usually doesn't guarantee exclusivity of the venue. So you won't surely have external people during the breakfast or at the swimming pool, but they will still have access to the restaurant or the spa, and there could be even another event in a different area. I suggest checking this aspect beforehand. And the third option is just booking the rooms you need for your party. Especially if you go with a large resort where there are much more rooms than you could fill with your guests, this is the only option you have. That means that there will be external people at breakfast, at swimming pool, at the common areas, and there could potentially be other events during your stay. Of course, external people won't have access to the spaces you rent for your wedding events. And many couples are absolutely fine with that, so why shouldn't you? If you would choose this option, my suggestion is to block a number of rooms for your guests, even if everyone pays for themselves. You wouldn't surely want that another large group books rooms in the meantime and some of your guests remain without accommodation on site. It's important to manage your guests' accommodation, and it's one of the services that we do for our couples. However, you can try to sort this aspect directly with the venue. With this last option, and oftentimes also with the second one, you would need to pay extra for renting the spaces for the ceremonies. I mean, not only for the wedding ceremony itself, but also for prayers and other events where you need a separated space from the food function. Such spaces are only included with the buyout of the hotel. Another important aspect to consider with venues where you don't rent all the rooms, but just the ones that your guests need, is the noise restrictions. If there are external people staying there, the venue must guarantee the comfort also of those guests. They will likely allow you to have music only until 11 p.m., maybe until midnight during the summertime, but then you would likely need to turn it off. Sometimes hotels have separated soundproof rooms where the party can move after the dinner. But we know that it would hardly work for Indian weddings where people is used to dance during the dinner. So please check from the beginning what is their noise policy. And lastly, I want to mention the food aspect. This one is crucial if you want Indian food at your wedding. Whether you rent all the rooms or just a number of them, it's quite hard that a venue would allow an external catering company in their kitchen. As you can imagine, they would have to prepare for other guests as well, for the restaurant, etc. And having external people in their kitchen would only create chaos. This situation would likely be different with the buyout of the hotel, where there are only you and your party, and the venue could potentially lend their kitchen to an Indian catering company you would hire. However, don't take that for granted and verify beforehand. In one of my previous videos, I have already spoken about Indian food at your wedding in Italy. You can check it out for more information. And especially please check out my free video where I explained in details the options you have in Italy and what to watch out for when choosing your Indian food provider. I have put the link for you in the description. And what about venues without accommodation? What do you have to consider if you decide to go with this kind of venues? First of all, that you would need transportation. Even if you stay in a big city where it's easy to find taxis, I always suggest organized coaches to transport your guests to the venue and back if you want to avoid delays. And if your wedding venue is in a small remote location, then the transportation becomes mandatory. So you have this additional cost to consider. Also, if you go with a wedding venue without accommodation, that means that you're staying elsewhere, and you would likely bring a lot of stuff to the venue for the ceremony or reception. It's extremely important that everything is prepared, checked, and delivered to the venue on time. Because if something important gets forgotten, you would need to go back to the hotel, risking delays and additional expenses. If you have a wedding planner or a wedding coordinator, they will make sure that nothing important gets forgotten. If you organize your wedding on your own, then it's important that you have someone in charge for that. On a positive note, with such venues, you don't have the issue of external guests, noise restrictions, spaces to share with other people or to pay extra. Such a venue is always rented in exclusive use, and it will be you to decide on the spaces to use, what to do there, and when to do it. Also, you will likely have the possibility to hire the suppliers you want. However, even venues without accommodation often have on-site restaurants, so it's important that you verify this aspect if you want to hire Indian chefs for your wedding. Of course, if you plan on having multiple days of celebrations, then you would need more than one venue. Potentially, you could rent even 2 or 3 venues, one for each day of events. It will depend on your budget. Otherwise, you could consider to have your pre-wedding events at the hotel and then rent a wedding venue only for the wedding day. It could be an option as well. That's all for today. Thank you for watching this video that I hope can truly help you with planning your amazing Indian wedding in Italy. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to my channel, follow Best Indian Weddings Italy on Facebook and Instagram, comment in the post, and I will be happy to answer. See you next week!